my biggest takeaway going into this thing, saying, hey, what do you need to happen this year? And like my biggest response, or the thing that I think is the most dire need, the thing that's most important, is at the end of the year, we can sit on our couches and watch the Broncos play at the end of the year going, we found our quarterback. And let me just tell you, and I get that it's one preseason game, but after one preseason game, we got a pretty good idea of what the guy is. Well, it doesn't mean there's not going to be growing pains, but I think we're off to a really good start, and I think we're closer today than we were yesterday afternoon at 10:55 Colorado local time to knowing that we got a guy that can lead this football team. We're one step closer to having that goal accomplished for the Denver Broncos of 2024.
Relax, guys. This is how excited everyone got over Tim Tebow, too.
That is not even close to being correct. The Tebowites, maybe. The Tebowite. Anybody who knew football, like, see, here you're coming from a perspective of not understanding the game. Anybody who knew football was like, how in the world can, like, when they saw Tim Tebow, like, oh, my God, like, that guy can't play. There's nobody that knows football that watched that game yesterday that said, oh, yeah, he's just getting lucky. He can't play.
One of the most important parts about preseason and training camp is eye test. And one of the things that we started to see in week 2 of Broncos camp compared to week 1 is Bo just overall starting to feel more comfortable with the rush. Once the pads went on, it was a little shaky to start, but as he started to get more comfortable, you talked about the pocket presence in college. It started to translate on the training camp field to the point where, okay, he's got bullets flying here, he's got this guy coming here, but he's not head down looking at the rush. Like Russell Wilson would lose complete sight of the field and only be paying attention to the offensive and defensive lines. And then he'd spin himself into a sack. How about this number? How about a big fat 0 sacks the entire game yesterday? You want to know what a Sean Payton offense looks like when you're not taking negative plays constantly and making mistakes in execution? That's it.
Yeah, 100%. I'm glad you brought it up because that's exactly one of the things that I talked to Sean about is Bo Nix, pocket presence, doesn't take sacks, is not going to run himself into trouble or harm's way, and the bottom line is going to sit in there and actually take one of the teeth and deliver, and throw a strike. And you saw that yesterday too. That's something you haven't seen in 2 years because our guy, the last 2 years, bailed out before. It was with perceived pressure. There was no pressure. And forget about stepping up in the pocket. I'm rolling out the back end and taking a 9-yard or 11-yard sack. Like, I don't know how many times you have to watch that before you realize the guy doesn't understand. And Bo Nix gets it. Like, climb the pocket. Throw it from a dirty pocket. Like,
move to the right, move to the left, scramble on third down.
Slightly. Yep.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, it was textbook. Obviously, the biggest story that Broncos Country has had to talk about in what feels like, to me personally, since the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that in the most literal sense. Sean Payton takes Bo Nix with the 12th overall pick and received so much criticism for doing so. I'm raising my hand.
I'm not rooting for Bo.
I'm not
rooting for Bo.
Thank you, Ty. Thank you. I think we get the picture. Everybody understands. I'm raising my hand.
Right.
One thing I said to Mike last week while you were gone, and it was something that I saw last Saturday at their most formal scrimmage. This is a guy whose pocket presence is really starting to develop, but I don't want to get too over my skis here because it's Broncos on Broncos, and this is a team that we don't expect to be very good, right?
Right.
So I kind of want to see it against a real team before I start going, we might have something here. And we talked about that last week, but obviously training camp is up and down. Well, the display that we saw yesterday, and really all 3 quarterbacks played well in that football game.
Correct.
But the chosen one has arrived in Denver. And
God bless Bo Nix.
God bless Bo Nix. And I'll say this. Broncos Country should be ecstatic today. Ecstatic today. It's one preseason game, but you could literally not make a better first impression on this fan base.
Yeah. I mean, you think about it. 15 to 21, 125 yards, had that just absolute dart. I mean, dart to Mims out there for the touchdown.
Oh, the little RPO swing, swing out.
And it was great. And I will tell you a couple things. He had the pass that was dropped that was an absolute dime piece down the sideline to Reynolds, which you can't throw it any better than that. But one of the things that I had talked to Sean about, and in my evaluation of Bo Nix and why I thought he was a great fit, is just his pocket presence is extreme. And I always said this about Tom Brady, and I'm not comparing him to Tom Brady, but Tom Brady was the best scrambler that I've ever watched play in the NFL that actually never left the pocket. He just moved within the pocket ever so slightly to buy himself a half a second, a half a tick, so that he could deliver a football and he could deliver it off platform. And what you saw, if you were really paying attention, is a guy who's got great pocket awareness, and he did not run for the sake of running. He did not escape the pocket unless he was forced to escape the pocket. And then it was about making a play, be it with his arm, like he did on that first third down and long conversion to Courtland Sutton on the sideline, or whether it was with his feet. But his third downs, I don't know what his third downs were as a quarterback, but I thought he was tremendous in third down, which is the most critical down. I thought he was tremendous in the pocket. I thought he had unbelievable pocket presence, and he led the football team. I mean, he flat led the football team. And they did things in preseason game number 1 that they couldn't do last year. And, oh, by the way, in a day and age where most of the time nobody plays in the preseason, kudos to Sean Payton. He made his starting offensive line go for 4 series because he wanted to get a proper evaluation between Stidham and Bo Nix. And he made it, by the way, the other thing is that I'll give you, not that I'm bashing Stidham, but one of the things that will grade him down is Mike McGlinchey had an offside. Did you watch Mike McGlinchey go after Stidham on his snap count?
Well, that was the first thing I thought of, because you and I last Saturday, before you left to Alaska, were sitting out there watching the offensive line talking about the cadences that they were going through.
Right.
And that first drive with Stidham, you're sitting there kind of scratching your head going, uh-oh. First of all, the softest personal foul on Tim Patrick coming back off of 2 years injured that I've ever seen in a preseason game.
Good for Tim Patrick, by the way. Really excited for him making his debut after 2 years, and good for him. But continue.
And then you double down with back holding with Bolles, and then I think, was it Sutton or was it McGlinchey there? It was McGlinchey on the first drive, right? Who with the false start?
With the false start,
right.
And he went straight. I mean, he went directly over to Stidham and gave him an earful.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, about a snap count. He went directly over to him. He was pissed. I could see it in his face because I've been there. And when you give me a non-rhythmic, crappy snap count, it's impossible for an offensive lineman to execute the offense. Yeah, he was heated, man, heated, and that's one of the issues. One of the issues of rotating quarterbacks,
right?
And it's something that we talked about last week. As a matter of fact, one of the coolest things I've ever seen, and I've never seen anybody do this. I've never seen it before. So normally when you go do one-on-ones as an offensive line with your defensive line, you do snap count drills one-on-one drills and some run blocking drills. Normally it's a coach just going, blue 80, set hot, right? It's on one. It's on first down, hut, And our O-line coach, Zach Schlereth, said, I want to get all the quarterbacks' cadences and I want to record them. And he put a speaker out there. So when they do one-on-ones, it's not a coach going through the cadence. He's got the cadences on his phone connected to a speaker, so the offensive linemen get another period of listening to each individual snap count. Now the snap counts, you try to make them identical. You try to make them as close to being identical as possible, but they're not. Everybody's got a little different voice cadence. Everybody's got a different inflection, and so. Yeah, McGlinchey was heated. He went directly to Stidham and gave him an earful on snap count.
And so you got 25 yards of penalties that first drive. Look, I mean, they were in plus territory, right? I mean, that was a nice first down completion to Sutton there. But again, you've got negative plays and mistakes. And I started thinking, oh, no, this is like 2023 all over again. And then he started to settle down, and I thought he looked fine. I thought he made a couple of nice plays, relocated outside the pocket, made a good throw. So nothing that he really did wrong. But even in that moment at the end of the second drive, I was like, okay, we're good. I understand what he is. Right. I've seen enough of him now to understand who he is and what he is.
It's what I've said from day one. The ceiling of Stidham is here, and the ceiling of Bo Nix is exponentially higher. even if Stidham's a little ahead of Bo Nix, which I don't think he is, but the first day of camp or 2 days of camp,
he might have been in the past, but he ain't anymore.
When Mike Evans and Zach Bye and everybody else was freaking out, like, oh my God, this ceiling for Bo Nix is exponentially higher than it is for Stidham. It's just the way it is. By the way, the ceiling for Zach Wilson is exponentially higher than it is for Stidham.